Here it is for all to see. Yeah.
You had a pretty average junior career, pretty average college career, one of the top doubles players in the world. How brutal tennis is, because if you're not playing, you're not earning.
Switching from singles to doubles. And I think the time of that happening was good things could sort of come from almost anything.
Welcome, Luke. Thanks very much for being on the podcast. I know it's a bit of a tough time for you right now, but I think it's also very apt that we be able to talk about things on this podcast and for everybody to get to know you better. I think your story is absolutely brilliant because, you had a pretty average junior career, pretty average college career, and then started as a pro tennis player just to see, what you could do. And from, starting fairly slow on the pro tour, you kept working at it, gathered pace, and now, one of the top doubles players in the world. There's some people who are saying that at the moment at the French that you're maybe the best doubles player in the world. So, that's a phenomenal rise and a phenomenal, real tribute to all the work that you've done to get into that position, without, a star quality junior career or an unbelievably star quality college career. You just kept going at it and I guess gained the belief and the experience in how to use your game and realize how much of your game is so good. Does that kind of explain things?
I think probably better than I ever could have explained it, to be honest. So yeah, thank you for the kind introduction. I'm not sure, I'm not good at speaking, I guess, about myself so much. So thanks for those kind words.
I've kind of helped you out, but I would like you to just give a very brief synopsis of, your journey so far, just not as a tennis player, but as a person, and just a synopsis of your life in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Leeds. I went to school there, and growing up was just sports mad, played all sports really, football, tennis and cricket. My main two were probably tennis and cricket, and played them both. Like you said, in juniors, I played tennis to a decent standard. I played cricket probably to a very similar standard. And then combined that with schooling, got my A-levels, and then I I decided then just to focus on tennis, and went to the United States on a tennis scholarship, did 4 years there, really just loved my time there, loved tennis. I think it grew my love for tennis even more because it was something, I guess my parents said up until the end of my A-levels, school was the focus. And then after that, they were like, you can then choose. And I still stayed in education, but sort of focused more on the tennis. And then end of my college career, coached for a couple of summers up in New York to try and get some money to be able to play on the pro tour straight away. And then came back 2016, September of 2016 was when I started training. As a professional, I obviously started down at Team Bath with you and the other coaches down there. Did 3 or 4 amazing years there. And then decided I wanted to move back up north, back home really for my tennis. And since then been living up here, playing, and I was playing singles and doubles until 2022. And then since 2022 until the present moment, I've been specializing in doubles, and that's where we're at now.
I think it's a real inspiration to anybody who wants to try playing a professional sport, that if you just keep going, and you remain dedicated, that anything is truly possible. Obviously you're a gifted tennis player. You hit the ball extremely well, and you always have done. But to put it all together, the fact that you were able to do that means that anybody who, who has some weapons and can play good tennis, if they believe and keep going, what actually can happen.
Mm. No, I think it's been a long journey, but a journey that has been rewarding for me and helped me in life, sort of on the court and off the court. And I think being able to sort of mix the lessons between the two has been something that I think has been able to that's sort of kept me going, really.
Great. Um, so my first question to you is, which two people have influenced you the most in your life? And only one can be a family member.
Well, yeah, you took the easy option away with me going for my mum and my dad there. So that was no, I think obviously, yeah, my mum and my dad are massively influential, but I think I'm going to go with, for the family member, I'll go with my grandfather. I mean, he was a massive part of sort of my upbringing. My parents were both working full time, so he sort of helped 2 or 3 times a week, would collect me from school, take me to my tennis, take me to my cricket, come and watch, support. And I think just his sort of outlook on life was extremely, he was very kind, but I guess the best way to put it was he took no BS really, as in the same way, which I think as you grow older is something that I see a lot of value in the way he lived his life now. And I know he sort of passed away just under 8 years ago now. And still he's someone who comes into my thoughts when I'm making decisions, or I'm making like actions, or something I'm thinking about or not sure about. I sort of use him as maybe a reference point to either what would he do or what would he advise. And I think to have that sort of in my life has been a huge bonus. But his legacy sort of living on in my mind is something I think I can't sort of underestimate.
I think that's brilliant. I I think that kind of gives me inspiration as well as a grandparent, that it's a really important role, and you can set an example. And the other thing that I thought was very interesting is you can be kind but also not take bullshit.
Exactly. Yeah.
And people sometimes confuse kindness with being weak or soft, but actually being kind often means taking the difficult decision, which is, tough love is what we can describe it, but also with ourselves. Being kind to ourselves is maybe not always just agreeing with people. It's sometimes being kind to ourselves means, telling someone to piss off, because they're not being fair to us or good with us. So I think that was very, very interesting for me to
Well,
pick up that he was kind, but also could be very strong.
yeah, and I think also going into that, he went through a lot in his life. Like he lived through wars. He lived through like he was married twice, and both while they were married, his partners or his wives passed away. He lived through a lot of heartbreak, but he was still extremely kind. And I think and like he loved life. So it was very inspiring. And like I said, the more I live on and think about that, that is something that I really take from him.
Yeah, I think that is amazing. To have two spouses pass away and not get maybe just a little bit bitter, he is a huge tribute to his character. Great. My next question for you. Oh, sorry, your second person.
Yeah. My second person, yeah.
I'm getting carried away here.
Yeah. No, I think the second person actually is he's my current coach, Calvin Betton. I think we've also, I guess, been on a journey through my tennis as the same time. He's been my coach now for roughly 5 years. But prior to that, he'd been involved in my tennis a lot. I mean, he was good friends with my coach when I was a junior, Gary Henderson. Calvin was good friends with him. And I remember back when Gary was my coach, Calvin would show up randomly at tournaments, like very often, and he would just be sort of watching my matches and like taking stats of my matches without, he would never tell me he was coming, and he would never sort of ask to be paid or anything. And he would just show up, take that, and then pass this information to Gary, who couldn't come that at that point. And that was something, I mean, that being that, having that, what someone like that in my journey who has been there from the beginning and has seen the sort of the full journey. And he, as a tennis coach, has done a lot of hours in Barnsley. He's done a lot of hours, like he'd worked there for free for me, basically. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure, I think my parents in the end maybe were paying him, but it was
Right.
one of those, he did it out of wanting to do it because he loved tennis at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way he sort of lived his whole life, is his passion is tennis and music, really, or sport, tennis, football and music. And he
Yeah.
does everything going around those three things. And he's lived his life sort of unapologetically how he wants to live it. And now, as a team, and obviously myself, he coaches me and he coaches Henry Patton, who's won 2 Grand Slams in the last year. He's now being rewarded for just being relentless in his pursuit of his passion. And I think that is something that is amazing to sort of see and be around.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I've known Calvin a long time, and of course I coached Gary Henderson. So I know Gary very well as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I also remember him, helping Brandon Murphy, and, clearly doing a lot of that just purely out of passion and desire to help Brandon. And yeah, I think when people talk about the hard yards and just doing what you believe in doing, again, Calvin is a huge example of, as you said, relentlessly pursuing tennis, with actually no guarantee of any kind of reward. But it's almost like, if you get really good at something, you keep doing it, at some point rewards will come. And one of my statements, which is in my book, do the work and good things will happen. You just never know when.
Good.
I think Calvin now is reaping the rewards. Well, he's definitely reaping the rewards of all of that work.
Yeah.
And that's well deserved.
Yeah, no, it is. He's been through a lot with tennis, and he's also just improving. I'm not that I'm monitoring him as a coach, but I can tell that he's improving as a coach. And like I guess one of the things, like he says things now and they're sort of relatable outside of tennis. And I think that's always I guess that's a sign of maturity for me and maturity for him. And he may say, like, one thing that always stuck in my mind was I was going through a period where, I mean, as well, where I was struggling almost with my serve in sort of mentally with my serve.
Yeah.
And one of the things he'd said to me was like, what would this serve look like if you knew with absolute certainty that you were going to make it, or you were going to hit the serve that you want to hit? And I thought about it, and so we went through it all, and he kept saying this, and he'd say, like, right, go up to the line and hit it. But I know, and we know, that this serve is going to be the one you want to hit. And then it's sort of that related to life is like, look, you go in there with the belief, you almost have to walk with the belief that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then it actually, now I don't really have, I'm very confident in my serve or in particular shots now. And it's been a really nice long journey with Calvin. So I'm grateful to have him sort of in my corner.
Yeah. And I mean, in watching you play at the French, I mean, you served incredibly well. And it was consistent and hitting your spots. And yeah, I mean, you became, you have become very, very difficult to break.
Mm.
But I'd say one of your standout features as a tennis player, apart from your serve, is your return of serve, which is making you a bit of a nightmare to play against because your consistency of returns and the quality of your returns is really hurting the best players in the world.
Mm.
Um,
Okay, yeah, I think
so
naturally that I've found that that is more of a natural. I've obviously worked on it, but I've been lucky that that's more of a natural thing, I think. But again, it's not. I
yeah, I
guess.
mean, I remember even when you played singles, there were games where you'd literally hit 3 clean winners and be love 40 like that.
Yeah.
Just uh, and I think hindsight's always a wonderful thing.
Mm.
Uh, but had you maybe had the mind, well, not if you had the mindset early on in your singles that you've developed into now, clearly you would have had better results then. But equally, if you'd had better results in singles, would you have held off longer and not played doubles, and then, being kind of in that halfway house for much longer? So, often things happen, I think, to help determine a career.
I'm glad I went through the tough times of struggling on my serve. Overall, when you look back, those things now are something I can look back on, and you have to go through them to learn. So I'm happy I went through them, and I'm happy with the journey that it's taken me on to doubles. So I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, no, I mean, they say life happens while you're making plans. You do things the best way you can at the time with the information that you have then.
Mm.
And we all just don't know what we don't know, and going forward, you learn and learn and learn, and you know more. Um, but at the time, you just can do the best that you've got at the time.
Exactly.
Um, so, and that is actually, rather than looking back and going, "Oh, I wish I would have known," it's just like, well, that is actually the journey of life,
Mm.
because it starts from a child. Young children have a very narrow view of the world, and that widens and widens and widens.
Mm.
Um, and so it's actually pretty normal.
Yeah. No, it's you're exactly right. You're very wise yourself in everything you say. So that it is. Yeah, you're exactly right with that.
Great. So my next question for you, and big well done to Calvin, because
Mm.
I know the journey like you do that he's been through, and it's he's done great. And you guys together have done great. Um, what event would you say changed maybe the course of your life, or changed your perspective of life in a big way?
I think this one was an easier question actually for me to answer. I think straight away I come back to switching from singles to doubles, like focusing on singles to doubles, and I think the time of that happening was 2021, end of 2021, beginning of 2022, and I actually tore my meniscus in my knee, so I was maybe had 3 months off with the surgery and the recovery. And I think during that time, my girlfriend Anna, she was over in Australia working. So I took the chance after the surgery and I was rehabbing, just to go out to Australia for a month. And during that, I just sort of that was the first block of time that I was fortunate that I'd never struggled with injuries in my career prior to that. And that was the first block of time I'd had where I wasn't playing tennis. And it actually gave me the distance from the sport, which I hadn't had, to be able to look at and reevaluate what I wanted from the sport. And I was 28 at the time. And I was almost thinking, I've played tennis since I was 3 years old. I'm now 28. I love playing tennis. I still love playing tennis, but I want it to be a career. And the young junior version of me wanted to play all the biggest tournaments. I wanted to play on all the biggest courts in the world and have a long career from it. And I think then I just thought, well, which is my best way to that? And at the time, and obviously it's luckily worked out, that doubles was the way to do that. And I sort of changed my mindset actually to tennis being more of a business for me as well. So I'd say I watch very little tennis outside of the scouting. I watch a lot of my opponents playing, and I look and I'm watching it with a mind of what am I going to do when I play against them. But I don't watch, bar the massive matches, the Grand Slam finals, of singles. I don't just sit and watch hours of tennis. When I'm practicing, I maybe practice for an hour and a half, 2 hours, but with very, very focused, like specific things that I'm trying to work on. And then I don't just play for hours on end. And I think I've just been able to then separate tennis and life more, rather than it all being thinking about tennis and watching tennis and then going to practice tennis and then coming back and watching tennis. I think it's become much more of a mindset shift to where I'm trying to win, be the best, absolutely be the best, but it's also about having a career and doing what I wanted to do as a child. And that was the time away from tennis sort of gave me the distance to make that decision. And luckily, it's worked out, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if you remember the Wimbledon, your very first Wimbledon in doubles, and you played against Roger Vasselin and Hebert, was it? Or
maybe, yeah, no,
with Evan Hoyt, was it not?
No, we were supposed to play Verdasco, but we ended up playing we ended up playing Zverev and Monroe.
Ah, yes, that's right. Yeah,
it was supposed to be slightly bigger names than that, and then we played Zverev and Monroe.
Yeah, and I just remember that first Wimbledon. You know how nervous you were, how you felt like you didn't belong, and I remember saying to you, one of the things is, don't play this like it's going to be your only Wimbledon.
Mm.
If you're going to be here regularly, then this is not such a big deal.
Mm.
If you play it like it's the only time you're going to be here, then it is a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that.
No, yeah, I remember it, and it's at the time. I remember coming away thinking like, I think it might be my only Wimbledon. If I play like that for many more, and I feel like that, maybe it will be my only Wimbledon. But I'll take. Dave knows more than me at the moment, so we'll go with it. But yeah, now obviously you hindsight, you were very right. But it was at the time I remember thinking, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I went through the same thing with Marcus Daniel, because his first Grand Slam was actually the French Open. And he was, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then I said exactly the same thing to him. And then 5 years down the line, I remember I was sitting there at the French. I said, do you remember that first French Open? I said, this is probably the first of probably 20 Grand Slams that you're going to play. Mm. And one day you'll be sitting here and go, I can't believe I was so head up about that first time. But I think it's important to at least have it in mind that it's not, that not to approach it like it's the only time you're going to be there, even if you don't quite believe it at the time.
Yeah.
I do think it's an important seed to have in your mind that, you know what, I've earned the right to be here, and this is just the first of many.
Yeah. No, it is. It's definitely the right way to think. It's not an easy way to think in the moment, but it's definitely a right way to think.
Yeah. So great stuff. It was obviously a big decision that for you, and pivotal, and it's proved to be very right. You're now, as a doubles team, number 11 in the world, and as a team, and obviously we're going to be seated at Wimbledon, and unfortunately at Queen's this year you slipped and fractured your wrist.
Yeah. It is for all to see.
Yeah. So it's a huge and massive disappointment, because it chops out a big part of your summer.
No.
in terms of Wimbledon, a Grand Slam where you were going to be seeded, a 500 and two 1000s. Sorry to be rubbing it in there, but I think it's very important for people out there to understand how brutal tennis is, because if you're not playing, you're not earning. And if anybody can imagine, if you broke your wrist and couldn't do your job for 8 to 10 weeks, and your company said, well, tough, you just don't get paid now for 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I think people will be up in arms. So I think
Yeah.
there's something there for, I know tennis and singles is starting to do something for players and have a bit of a backstop there, in terms of if a player's top 100 and they've got various type of things, but they've not yet introduced that to doubles, as I
No,
understand
not
it.
yet.
And I think it is something that needs to be looked at, because it is it is your job, and to be able to still have some income when you're sitting on the sidelines. I think it really and truthfully is kind of fair. I know sport has to evolve and everything like that, and the money has to come from somewhere, but I do believe it's something that needs to be looked at, and I will be, as a member of the ATP coaches committee, I will be bringing this up with the ATP. Change always takes a while, but I think it's something that could be looked at.
It would be nice.
Yeah, it would be nice. Yeah. My question to you is I think this probably goes back to your grandfather, and to Calvin, your coach, to someone like myself, and your own personal resources that you've built over this long tennis career so far. How are you going to approach this period where you are not going to be able to compete on tour?
I think something that I believe, and I've always believed it, but it's sort of grown, is that like good things can sort of come from almost anything. And I mean, obviously, I was extremely disappointed to be out for the grass season. I mean, we were halfway through the first match of the grass season, and that was it. So yeah, 45 minutes of it. But I think, yeah, I just had a look. Firstly, what did I want to sort of achieve in this time? Like in my tennis game, in anything on the court. That includes, I mean, in tennis, I'm including like physical strength, everything, like anything that would affect my tennis game. And then also, what would I want to like have the chance to do in my personal life, which tennis often is so brutal on. So I mean, yeah, the first thing we're doing is we booked a holiday. Anna and I we're going to go away next week to Greece for 7 days, which I think is
Brilliant.
something that's going to be like amazing, because Anna deals with all of the negatives when I sort of say, look, I've got to stay away for an extra week at a tournament here because this. So it's nice that it's turned round, and suddenly she had holiday during the first week of holiday off work during the first week of Wimbledon. So we're able to sort of say, look, let's just go on a last minute decision. Let's head over to Greece. She's half Greek, so she's ready. She's excited for that. So obviously able to have a bit more time with family and friends, and sort of do a few social things that I wouldn't normally be able to do. See my friends a bit more, spend time with Anna, spend time with my family. And then on the court, I mean, there's a few things physically I want to sort of achieve over the next few months, or the next couple of months, hopefully, which would be my like power and my explosiveness on the court. And in tennis, you don't get much time really, where you have 8 weeks without a tournament to look forward to. Fatigue isn't really a problem now. I can work on things, and yeah, so just try and take the negative that's happened and turn it into something positive, and hopefully come US Open, which is my goal to be back for that, I will be physically moving much better, and my game will be in a really good place, and meant off the court I'll be refreshed from having time, and I'll sort of filled up my cup, so to speak, with recharge the batteries, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's just a brilliant way of looking at the time, and for sure, it generally takes about 6 weeks to make a full physical change, and to really upgrade physically. So you've got those 6 weeks to really, do some really hard yards and explosive work, and the margins are so small. If you come back that much stronger and that little bit faster, a little bit more explosive, well, imagine what you can do then, because you're already doing extremely well.
Thank you. But yeah, no, I think it's one of those things to try and take out anything that happens, and there's good within reason, within tennis and within sport and within business and anything. There's always good that can come from something. It's trying to find.
Well, I think shit happens that we have no control over.
Yeah.
But the one thing we do have control over is how we're going to react to it. What are we going to do about it? And for me, feeling sorry for yourself is never really an option. That doesn't mean you don't have a 10-minute or whatever, like, oh yeah, shit, but then you just got to get off the ground and go, okay, this has happened. What am I going to do about it? That is still helpful. That's still good for me, because there are always things that you can do. And there, you can rage against it. You can feel sorry for yourself. You can do whatever you like, but at the end of the day, it's happened and you cannot change it, and it's beyond your control. So, the only thing you can do is choose the way you're going to react to it. And I think your choice is first class.
Thank you.
Which is why you will come back stronger, because that's what happens when you view things and take the positives out of a shitty situation.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, even if I'll come back as good as I can, and we take it from there. I'm going to do everything better, and we take it from there at the end of this.
Exactly. So I think maybe the last question I had for you, which was, what is your current go-to beliefs or superpower that serves you well and really helps you navigate tough times? I mean, is there anything you have to add other than the fact that you immediately looked and saw the positives that you could take from this? And
it's small, it's kind of linked in with it, I guess. It would be that I also have been in tennis and things. I've had things which seem career ending, or things you're never going to come back from, like where you've wanted the ground to sort of swallow you up when you're playing, type of things, and then you come back from it and really it doesn't really change anything. So I sort of also believe, while good can come from anything, that ultimately everything's probably going to be okay. It's very simple, but it's not like, I think if bad things happen, it'll be okay. And don't over worry about the good or the bad or the negatives. Again, I'm obviously speaking about less serious things. There's things in the world happening that people aren't going to be okay from, but I'm talking in a tennis and social life sort of setting, that I think good can come from almost anything, and in the end it'll probably be okay. Yeah.
Well, you say that, and it's proven. So Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps, he said one of the big things that helped those survive the concentration camps who did survive was not optimism. It definitely wasn't pessimism. It was a survival realism. So he said the optimists would always be going, we'll be free this Christmas, or we'll be free by Easter, or we'll be free. And they were constantly being disappointed and eventually that optimism would turn into pessimism because they were always being disappointed. The pessimists just said, we're done for, this is it, and didn't survive. He said the ones who survived, he said, we found a way of trying to make our life in the camp as good as it could be. And we focused on, gallows sense of humor. They would, bet on all sorts of things like, who was going to die next and stuff like that, which sounds awful. But in those situations, it was so bad. Yet they were able to find some joy in life, even in such a terrible circumstance. And always believed that one day they would be free, but they never put a time limit on it. It's like, we have to make the best of our life in this concentration camp as we have it now. And we've got to support each other when the really horrible stuff happens, but always find a way to make the best of this situation. And humor was a big, big part of it. And therefore, if that ultimate belief that everything would be okay eventually, is what served them so well, those who survived.
That's an impressive thing to be able to do it in the face of. I'm only doing it in the face of tennis at the moment, and they're doing it in the face of concentration.
No, but I'm saying it's like when people talk about happiness, if I had a lot of money, I'd be happier. Well, the reality, is you have unhappy rich people, unhappy, comfortable people, unhappy poor people, and you have happy poor people, happy at every level of society. And that's people's choices that they're making as to how they're going to, react to whatever circumstances they're in. And, you're living your life as a tennis player, so you have to react to the circumstances that you're living in as a tennis player. But I do believe that strength of character will serve you well in everything in life.
Well, I hope so.
You will be okay.
Yeah,
and your grandfather, your grandfather had, lost 2 spouses and yet still had a great zest for life. That's telling you that no matter how bad things get, everything will be okay. Doesn't mean it's always nice or that you always have to like it, but it's ultimately how you choose to view it means that things can be okay. That was a bit heavy. Sorry, mate. But
no, it's good. I enjoy it.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks very much. And of course, next week you get to flip and ask me some questions. So thanks very much for being on, Luke. Good luck with the injury. Enjoy your holiday away. And I look forward to you returning to the courts.
No, thank you, Dave. Thanks for the time, and thanks for always been a good source of wisdom for me when I need it as well.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.